And a bit of insight now into the structure of your coaching programs. Don't have to make it terribly long, maybe 5 or 6 bullet points as to what you go for. Do you want to have a go at that, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, I usually start off with getting clarity on what we want to get out of the program as a whole. You know, what the goal is, perhaps where they even want to be in 2 or 3 years' time. You know, by stretching the timeline further, you get some interesting feedback there. So I think that's where we start, and then just sort of map out various plans to get there. And that just leads to a conversation about where the obstacles are and where the opportunities are. You can bring in stakeholder analysis, you can bring in all sorts of things to get you starting on the right place. Then, you know, work on a plan, get on agreed actions, and you've got accountability when you have the follow-up sessions and make sure that stuff's happening. If stuff isn't happening, it might just be life, or it might be that, you know, coachees getting in their own way. And that's, I guess, where it really gets interesting, because then we've got tools that we can use to actually get inside the thoughts, understand the beliefs that's driving those behaviors, and replace those beliefs with something that's just as believable, but more helpful, and take it from there.
Anne?
I send a questionnaire out in advance and ask about the short-term things they want to work on, the longer term, because often there might be something that we talked about before, a difficult conversation or their boss or something, but also I want to know the longer term view so that we can look at these smaller things, the micro things, and then look at the macro things when it's good there. And I also ask questions in there about what their current support system, as I mentioned earlier. So I have a list of questions. What I also say, based on the understanding of personality preferences, is if this doesn't work for you, don't fill it in. If it does work for you, fill it in and send it to me. And if you want to miss some questions out, do that as well. But I often get some really good start point from the questionnaire, which helps me to structure the sessions.
Because they've reflected.
Yeah, they've had time to reflect, and it gives them a job to do before they start.
Andy?
When I reflect on how the process, I have got a couple of common starting points. One of my first questions is, how did you get where you are today? I want to hear the story of their career. I want to hear a little bit about their life experience and their development, because I think it's a good starting point. You know, how do they turn up? What's my life that's brought me to this point? I'm fascinated by that. And it sets a really nice context for it, their learnings, their experiences. The other thing I want to do is I sit there with a piece of paper. I said, I'm going to draw your structure chart as you describe it to me. And I said, the reason I want to do it is because I need to understand you in the context of your role. I want to know who your direct reports are, who matters to you, who your boss is. And I think getting them to hover above themselves in an organizational context, it's really important, because I then say, well, you just mentioned you've got this girl called Janet working you. What's she like then? It's like really taking a lens that's hovering above their role and saying, we're not just talking about you, we're talking about you in the context of your place. And then, of course, the ambitions. Where's, you know, let's go, you know, what are your thoughts about the future? What matters to you? And what are the pinch points? What's going on now that's on your mind that's an issue? Where do we want to start? That, you know, they're fairly gentle starting points, but those principles tend to live with me.
Karen?
The other thing I would add to all of that is just if somebody's not worked with a coach before, you know, some of the logistics around the setup. So, you know, when are they at their best? Because a lot of the work has kind of moved online, as we've been saying. So, you know, do you want to carve out the time in the morning? So I get them to think about the time of day. I also encourage them to not sort of squish the coaching back to back between another online call, because, you know, the presence, you kind of lose some of the essence of the conversation if you do that. So I think all of these little nudges can also help with their thinking and their clarity of thought and what they want to bring to the conversation. And also just something about pace, because people work at different speeds, don't they? So, you know, as long as the work is completed within, I think it's about within 12 months. Some people know, you know, if they're being driven by an event or an outcome, then I'll always talk about the kind of pacing of sessions as well. I think that can be useful for people. So you're kind of like setting the stall out.
Do you have a view about frequency?
Yes, I do. On the whole, most sessions would be done on a monthly basis. You know, the intervals of coaching might be slightly shorter or greater. But overall, I mean, most coaching is sold in sort of 6 session blocks over around about 6 months. But, I think with Aziz, we can work up to within 12 months. And it depends what's going on, if they're new in role or whatever, is important for them. And then you can kind of tailor it within that.